people are able to identify political persecution when they see political persecution. It's not the first time someone has signed an NDA. It's not the first time a politician has paid hush money, but they're calling hush money as though that's a crime. Schwarzenegger did it. John Edwards did it. There was another one who was a recent Democrat. I forget his name now.
Rahm Emanuel.
It's done.
Come on, get your shit
over
together.
and over again. And it's not a crime in and of itself. What is a crime is actually what Hillary Clinton actually did, which was use campaign funds to provide, fake opposition research that was built on known lies, slip it to the intelligence so they could then leak it to the media who can then publish it. And then they can go and use that publication to investigate and spy on their political opponent. That's actual election interference. And, they get a slap on the wrist. Everybody knew this case was bogus from the beginning. And anybody who followed that trial understood and really appreciated, ate it, digested it. It was bogus from the beginning. The judge was corrupt through and through. We all now know Trump was gagged so that he couldn't hammer home the fact that the judge's daughter was raising millions of bucks for an authentic PR firm, for Adam Schiff, another confirmed liar. So everybody saw it in real time. And this conviction, other than being, a very devastating thing for a purported free and democratic society, other than being an outright international humiliation, everybody who has half a reasonable brain knows it is what it is. And the only people purporting, still maintaining that this actually means anything are the liars from the get-go. It was a long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
You know what drives me?
Well, and my other favorite part of this is that, and we don't have the clip, but Michael Knowles has tested my theory when he was on with Piers Morgan. And I had this theory for a couple of days. I think I said it. What did I first say this? Probably last Friday, the day after it happened. I said, I'm telling you, I'm calling this. Go to any liberal, and I mean even professionals, and ask them to explain the charges, to explain what Donald Trump has been charged. Don't let him off the hook, right? This is key. Don't let him off the hook. Don't just say 34 felonies. Don't just say hush money payments. Actually engage with them and get them to explain to you the theory of the case. Viva, Michael Knowles attempted this with a liberal on the Piers Morgan show, and she completely fell apart. Why is it that they can't even explain the basic legal theory here? Well, I should tell you, the theory isn't that basic, is it?
The answer that I gave to that question was because they're stupid, lazy, ignorant, and or corrupt. And when you get all four of those together, well, you've got the holy quadruple of political corruption. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, okay. Nobody wants to hear poop, but you're going to hear poop stories. I had a busy day thus far. Let me just see who there. Oh, yep. Tarik, I see you. I'm going to do the intro. I see Tarik in the backdrop. We're good. I'm going to be on with The Unusual Suspects at 6:00 tonight. I then did a piece with Megyn Kelly and Phil Holloway at noon. I then picked up my vehicle, which is now back in my hands while we're back to two cars. You can't get around in America with one car. It's wild. And it seems that Pudge, my paralyzed puggle, has had something in her diet that changed her diet. And for those of you who don't know, dogs get very loosey-goosey when they change their diets if they're sensitive. And for those of you who don't know, Pudge is paralyzed. And so when Pudge poops in the house, she then slides across the floor because there's no carpet. You could have tracked every movement that she made for the last 2 hours. And it's sort of like the Ramba, except it's a dog. And when I'm done with this interview, not that anybody cared to hear this, I got to go seriously mop up the floor. It's disgusting. Okay. Tarik Johnson is going to come on. You've met him before because I've had him on before, and he's amazing. We're going to talk about some breaking or recent developments in January 6th. There's another tragic story coming out of a Capitol Police officer who took his own life, and I do not understand what is going on, but I've got questions. I've also got questions about Harry Dunn, that other guy that was standing behind Robert De Niro with the tattoos on his neck. Fiorni, it's got an F and an E and whatever. I got questions. And Tarik's going to have some answers. But before we even get in there, we are live across the interwebs. I should have checked this. We are live on Rumble. We are live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where I'm sure everybody is saying, Viva, enough talk about the poo-poo. So it's a crap show already, says Humperdew 5024. We should be live on Twitter as well, because I think I've gone full platform liveness. So we should be live across everywhere as we are. And it's going to be an amazing show. Now, you may have noticed as you got in here, it said this stream contains a paid promotion because it does. Now, speaking of medical issues, I can't. There's no other proper segue to get into this. Today's sponsor is the fine folks at the Wellness Company, and you go to twc.health/Viva, and they've got an amazing array of items and stuff that they're offering there. And there's going to be no shortage of needs for it or concerns to get it. On April 23rd, media outlets began the flood of headlines with the latest avian flu development. It's one thing after another, people, just in time for November. The FDA said, quote, it had detected viral particles of H5N1 avian influenza in milk purchased at grocery stores. And a great many bigger medical minds than me say, if this goes human to human, you know damn well it might have had a little Faucian hand of evil in sort of genetically modifying stuff, because things don't evolve that quickly or in that manner, from what I'm told. But what do I know? I'm just an idiot. While the FDA cautioned that they believe the milk is safe to drink, others are sounding the alarm. According to news reports, Dr. Topol, founder of the Scripps Research Translational Institution, said the finding of viral particles in milk on grocery store shelves means the outbreak is probably more widespread than we've known. Oh yeah, panic. The dissemination of cows is far greater than we have been led to believe, Topol said in an email Tuesday. The FDA assurance that the dairy supply is safe is nice, but it's not based on extensive assessment yet, which they have knowledge and which they've acknowledged, and which engender trust and confidence because it comes in the wake of the USC mishandling of, whatever the other stuff. The chief medical board at the Wellness Company has been closely watching the avian flu. They give it an H5N1, so you'll know it, outbreak in the United States over the last few weeks. And while it is far from certain that this most recent strand of bird flu will result in a pandemic, we know that the medical tyrants are never going to be done with us, and they mean never. And with scientists still saying that this bird's flu strain could be, quote, 100 times worse than COVID, end quote. And knowing it's an election year, Americans understand now more than ever, we need to be prepared. Do you have what your family needs in the event you can't get your stuff at the pharmacy? Do you have what you need in the event that there's supply chain issues? Do you have the kits with ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the stuff that we now, the FDA now says you can use, or the CDC says you can now use? Remember when they outlawed it? The only one of its kind, this prescription contagion emergency kit from the Wellness Company, provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for bird flu, COVID-19, and other respiratory illnesses: ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, HCQ, Z-Pak, Tamiflu, budesonide, along with a nebulizer, so you can rest easy knowing that you have the emergency meds on hand, along with a guidebook for safe use. Backed by research from experts like Dr. Peter McCullough of the Wellness Company's contagion kit is a must-have. It is available only to people in America, not available in Canada. And it's a prescription, so you need to fill out a form. You need to get it taken care of. And it's obviously something that everyone should have in their homes. For the cost of it, it'll be one trip to the doctor. You'll have everything you need. Go to the Wellness Company, twc.health/Viva. You get $30 off at checkout on the contagion kit. And that's it. Link is in the description. It should be. If it's not in the description, I'm going to put it in right now as I welcome our guest. And that brings us to the subject matter of the day. Tarik Johnson. Some of you might remember him from such insurrections as the one of January 6, 2021. Tarik, sir, are you ready to come in? It looks like he is. 3, 2, 1, ready or not. Sir, how goes the battle?
I'm doing okay. Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you perfectly. If you want to satisfy my neuroses at the risk of breaking something that's working, tilt your camera down a little bit.
Okay, I can do that.
There you go. Okay. That is, yeah, well, it's I have my issues, so it's perfect now.
Okay.
Tarik, it's been a while. I don't remember actually when our interview was, but we've done one interview, one space together, I think, or we were on a space together.
Yes, it was a long time ago. I stopped doing interviews. I think my last interview was around November of last year, and just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. So I'm back to doing this. This is my first interview I've done in probably about 7 months.
Okay, I mean, I say it's amazing, but we're gonna find out why they're pulling you back in. But some people who might be new to the channel might not know who you are, and without going over everything that we discussed in the first interview, because it was a long one, just 30,000 foot overview for those who don't know who you are.
Okay, and I'll be brief and real quick. How much time do we actually have today?
How much time do you need?
I think I can get it out in about 30 minutes, but I really
dude.
Yeah,
other than going to mop up crap off a floor, I'm this is my last installment for the day. I might do a short video after this, but I got something I'm not looking forward to. So let's go as long as we can.
Okay, perfect. Because I know that your viewers need to really hear this, and I'm going to be talking about things that I've never spoken before publicly. It's going to be hard for some people to listen to. I don't know if Ashley Babbitt's family is here listening, if Brian Sitnick's family is here listening, but it's going to be tough. But I need to have this conversation with you guys today, so I'm ready.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, you are a former United States Police Capitol officer or lieutenant?
I was on January 6th. I was a lieutenant with the Capitol Police. I was in charge of the certification, the security basically for the certification of the election while they were counting the electoral votes. I was in charge of routine operations on that day. I had been on the department at that time about, that was 2021, about 22 years. I was an officer first. I got promoted to special agent. I got promoted to sergeant at one point, and then finally in 2018, I got promoted to lieutenant. I was assigned to the Capitol, and that's where I was for the remainder of my career at the Capitol Police.
Okay. And now it's funny because I used the picture of you with Tucker Carlson, and I was worried people were going to say, they thought Tucker was going to be here. But like when you try to find your image in, Google Images, the only ones you can really get are when you're wearing the MAGA hat, or when that MAGA hat was placed on you, which got you into a ton of shit during the ensuing events. And I wasn't going to use that because I know you probably wouldn't want that. But do explain what happened with you wearing the MAGA hat. That became you became infamous for that, depending on the crowd that you asked. What was the incident there?
It's funny because, yes, that's what people saw. But before I jump into that part real quick, is it because what I have to talk about, unfortunately, I know some people probably don't want to hear it, I have to use some profanity. Is that like, is there
Tarik,
any...
the mic is yours. Whatever you need to say it.
Okay. So yes, so just so, just for people to, get the context, on January 6th, after the evacuation that took place and we got the members of Congress out of the building, heard a radio call for some distressed officers on the landing of the rotunda steps. I responded to the rotunda steps twice to try to get the officers. The second time was when someone put on the way down, somebody stuck a MAGA hat on my head, and I used that hat to go back the second time because the first time I was unable to get anybody out. So the second time I used it, and the Capitol Police used that as why I was suspended, but I wore the hat on January the 6th. I got suspended on January the 9th, and I got suspended because I made a call to Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont and to tell him about the malfeasance that occurred that day. And within an hour after I got off the phone with him, I was suspended. The Capitol Police called me on a Saturday. So yes, I got fired basically on my day off, and the Capitol Police came to my house and they took my police powers that very day on a Saturday morning.
Unbelievable. Okay. I got so many questions, but I'll get to my questions in a bit. The reason you and I messaged you when I heard that another Capitol Police officer took his life, and I said, I don't understand what's happening. Statistically, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's inexplicable. I mean, statistically, it's an anomaly that I don't know how to digest. I mean, are there that many Capitol Police officers? Is something else going on here? And then that's how we decided to schedule this. So, Tarik, I'll ask my questions as we go along, but you start, say what you have to say.
Okay, so the officer, his name was Juan Rivas. I knew him when I was there at the Capitol. I was a sergeant on the House Division, and he was assigned, I can't remember what section. I think he was either, I think he was H3, but he could have been H2. I can't remember. But I worked every section on the House Division, so I worked all three. So I just can't remember where I would come in contact with him. But anyway, I knew who the officer was, and I got a text early in the morning. I think it was the week before last that he committed suicide, and I was stunned, and it hit me hard. And obviously, about another officer, Howie Leaving Good. He committed suicide right after January 6th. You had 3 metropolitan officers committed suicide. You have a number of J6s who committed suicide. So the situation is bad. Now, I don't want to do anything to shame Officer Rivas's family. And I say that because I don't know if he actually responded to the Capitol on that day. I don't even know if he was there working that day. I heard maybe he was, but I don't know. So I'm not going to say that. But the fact that he or anybody committed suicide in and of itself is a bad thing. And the reason why I had made the tweet that I made, because it deflated me when I heard about what happened to him. So I said, I'm gonna stand down. And I had already kind of started to do it anyway because I got some other information. But when I heard that, I was like, you know what? Let me call the Capitol Police or contact the Capitol Police and say maybe we could work together. They didn't even know why. I just put it out there, but I absolutely communicated it to them so they know I wanted to speak to them. So in short, they basically, and I'm not going to say exactly how because I made a promise that I wouldn't do that, but they made it known that they absolutely did not want to talk to me about anything in any way, shape, or form. So thank you for having me here. So now I can tell you why I'm here. The first thing I want to say is when after all my discipline portion took place for wearing the MAGA hat, I 100% believe that the investigation was unfair, but I never really went into why. And I'll do that at another show or another interview. But after the investigation was over, I was told to come back to work. I'll be reduced in rank from lieutenant to sergeant. And when the commander called me, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want me talking about the names to distract from the actual message that you're going to see in a few minutes, what the message is. So the commander told me, he said, you're going to be coming back as a sergeant. You're going to COM 3, which is our communications section, third shift, which means I would have been working 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So that was my assignment. And I told him that the commander who called me, I said, listen, after everything I had went through, I was appealing the discipline, trying to fight it. I lost. So I said, listen, I'm not really mentally ready to come back to work. And I think it was like a week before Christmas, they wanted me to come back, like 2 weeks before January 6th of 2022, which would have been the anniversary. I said, I'm not mentally ready. So he used that. Well, I can't say he used it. He went and reported that to a higher authority. And that higher authority ordered me to go to a fit for duty examination. So a fit for duty examination, and like I told you, this is the first time I'm talking about this, and it's going to be some personal stuff, but I'm letting you guys know now because the world needs to hear it. So I had to go take a fit for duty examination. So I went. I think it was sometime in January when I had the fit for duty, and I failed the fit for duty test. Didn't pass the examination, and they said that I was dealing with let me see, they called it PTSD, which is post-traumatic syndrome.
Yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes,
When what
yes.
No, don't worry about what month
PTSD.
we're in this year. Like what month are we in?
Now this is right now. This was when I took the examination January of 2022. So that's where we are. I didn't get the results back until March of 2022. So that's where we are. March of 2022 is when I actually had the examination, because they tried to make me come back in December. I told them I wasn't ready. They put me on the fit for duty I had in January. I failed it in January. They didn't tell me until March, which was what I didn't understand. They knew I failed it, and they waited months and months, and they waited 2 months before they even told me that I didn't pass it. So, but by the grace of God, my wife, because I really did need help. Now, when I tell you I needed help, I don't know if you know this, but I was on the scene right after Brian Sicknick went down. I was right there. I watched him dying right there. I know that his date of death is January the 7th, but he was gone on the 6th. I was right there. I watched him. I was on the radio. The Capitol Police knew I was right there. They knew everything that I saw on January 6th, and they know what I went through from the beginning of the day until the end of the day. So that was just a prelude to what I'm about to go into. So I was dealing with that. I was also dealing with the fact that, and I haven't told anybody this probably at all, and I was ashamed to tell anybody, is because January 6th was an insurrection. But I was heartbroken that Ashley Babbitt died. And I knew it wasn't my fault that she died, but I was hurting because I couldn't save her despite of the failures of one of my commanders, and I won't even say her name because I don't want to take from the message. If anybody's been following me any amount of time, they already know who I'm talking about. So I was crushed. Now, I was crushed about Brian Sicknick, even though I knew it wasn't my fault that he was gone. I was crushed because he was in my command. I was a lieutenant. He was an officer in the Capitol. I didn't supervise him directly, but I knew exactly who he was. I was crushed when he died.
Let me stop you there, because I know we discussed this the last time. I know the type of disagreement that you recounting your own experience generated among the chat.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a fire extinguisher. Whether or not I know that you said it might be related to the pepper spray that he got. He had a stroke, passed away the next day. No fire extinguisher was not. Was it at the hands of any violence that you saw, or was it?
No. And I want to make this clear. I don't believe that any person killed Brian Sicknick. I believe what the coroner said. The coroner said he died of natural causes, and that's what we're going with. I'm going to go with the science, and I'm going to go with the coroners. So I don't blame any person on the ground for what happened to Brian Sicknick. So I want to make that clear. So, because I don't want people to lose the main message because they think that I'm pointing the fingers, and I'm not. I pointed the finger at someone else because at the end of the day, we should have been prepared for that day, and we were not. We had the information. It just wasn't pushed down to us. I don't blame the J6ers or anybody that was on the ground for that day, because I've consistently said we were all set up on January the 6th. Everybody on the ground that day, whether you did something illegal, whether you did something wrong, whatever, you were set up if you were there that day. So, but I was hurting badly because I couldn't save both of those individuals in spite of the failures of the Capitol Police. Now, I was sad for the other people that died too, but Ashley Babbitt really got me because now I don't know how much you remember or how much you know or how much we discussed it on the last interview, but at about 2:28, I ordered for the Senate to be evacuated. I was begging on the radio prior, begging for help, trying to de-escalate the situation, because that's what we needed. We needed somebody to help de-escalate the situation, to calm down the officers, to calm down the demonstrators. That's what we needed. So I'm begging for help, and I wasn't getting it. So I just made the decision on my own to go ahead and evacuate the Senate. Now, I didn't order the evacuation into the House and the reason why I didn't order the evacuation of the House side of the Capitol, because I wasn't over there, so I couldn't see. Now, you had a particular commander who was leading the charge, supposedly, and she had everything on CC cameras. She could see everything on both sides, and she would not help. And you hear me on the radio, and all these transmissions now are public, begging for help. So, and that caused the delay, because I couldn't see on that other side because I was standing on the Senate side when I ordered the evacuation of the Senate.
Let me ask you this. It's a question I had lingering from the first time. Who else would have had the authority to evacuate any portion of the building? Like, does every lieutenant have that authority, or did you have a singular?
Yes. Anybody could have done it. Yes. Okay. Now, the issue was it would have been hard for certain people on the ground to do it because they couldn't see. You have to be over there to see if there's a clear line of sight to get the people out. So that's why I didn't want to do it, but it needed to be done. So I called for the House evacuation at approximately 2:36. Ashley Babbitt, I think she was shot maybe 7 or 8 minutes after that. So, and this is the part that hurt me, and I'm still hurting because of it. If I would have made the call to evacuate at the same time, or if the call would have been made to evacuate the House and the Senate at the same time, Ashley Babbitt would be here. There's no question. So, but the thing is, I had a disadvantage. I couldn't see over there. And one of the people that I point the finger at consistently had a line of sight on both sides and would not help. Ashley Babbitt is gone because of that. And if any expert was to listen to the audio transmissions and how it went down from 2 o'clock to about 2:40, I think that it would be a unanimous, she was supposed to help. But at the end of the day, she didn't help. So so it's time to move on. But after everything was over, I got my discipline. A part of me felt I deserved the discipline because I couldn't save Brian and I couldn't save Ashley. So I felt like I deserved the punishment, even though I believed it was unjust. I felt like that was my penance because I wasn't good enough. And I remember a couple of days after January 6th, and I can't say the person's name, but somebody called me, a higher ranking person than I, and said, listen, Tarik, I just want to check on you. I just want to see how you're doing. And I was on the phone with that particular commander, and I said, and I was crying, and I was like, I'm fucked up, I'm fucked up, I'm fucked up. I did everything I could to help everybody I could that day, and it wasn't good enough. I couldn't save them. I couldn't save them. I was hurting. And then after I was suspended and I was cut off from everybody, I couldn't speak to my friends that were employed with the Capitol Police because I was at home for 17 months. And every time, Ashley Babbitt, and I blame myself because I couldn't save her in spite of. And I'm still hurt to the day. I think about Brian Sicknick. I think about Ashley Babbitt every day, and I'll be tormented with that for the rest of my life. I did the best that I could, and I knew who I was dealing with, and so I beat myself up. I was like, when I was outside on the West Front, maybe I should have shot warning shots. Maybe that would have calmed everybody outside down. First, Brian would be here today. Maybe if I would have yelled at Pittman, because you hear me basically yelling at her on the radio. Maybe I should have yelled at her louder. Maybe I should have ordered Pittman to do something and say, listen, you need to do something. You can't just let this happen. You got to help me de-escalate the situation. So for months and months and months, I beat myself up because she was gone, because she should absolutely be here. Brian Sicknick should absolutely be here. And like I said, after I was ordered for the fit for duty, and I spoke to my mental health professional, and I was in a bad state. When it came to the PTSD, I was kind of getting over that already by the time, because some of my symptoms were I was having nightmares, like recurring nightmares, and I was easily startled. So my PTSD was mild. I was hurting because I was sad about Ashley Babbitt specifically and Brian Sicknick specifically. I was sad about everybody else, but those two deaths got me the most because I felt like if I could have ran faster, if I could have done more, if I could have screamed at Pittman, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say her name. If I could have screamed louder, maybe she would have helped, and maybe Ashley Babbitt would have been here today.
Tarik, not to be the proactivist therapist, but or maybe by virtue of what you did, it was less bad than what it would have been, because this was, I mean, a lot of us believe that this was intended to let it happen on purpose or made it happen on purpose. And but for, there might have been more Ashley Babbitts or more Roseanne Boyland. If I may ask you, did you witness anything as relates to Roseanne? I forget if I asked you this the first time.
I wasn't there at the tunnel at that time. I was on the, during that time, I was on the east side getting ready to get suspended because I had the mega hat on. So I was dealing with that on that side. So no, I didn't see anything about Roseanne Boyland. I wasn't there for that event.
So like, I don't, people will, it's funny. I am reading the chat, and there's some trolls, if I'll call them that, from Twitter, it would seem, but it's a weird response to what you're saying. I don't know. People might say, big deal, but if you're at the event and two deaths occur, I've now come to grips with this, was more of a summary execution than a clean fire, as they say in the industry. And Brian Sicknick, who knows? I know I have my own queries about that as well, but I had asked you about that the first time. But some people are going to say, well, it happened. It's not your fault, and you're, I don't know, they'll judge you. But I guess where this is going now is other police officers are experiencing the same type of, on the one hand, maybe harassment, for professional harassment, and lack of care, lack of attention from the department.
100%. And so when I started my therapy, I got better. Well, let me read this first, okay? Because after I was notified that I didn't make it, I didn't successfully pass the examination. This is the letter that I got. I won't name the name of the person who wrote the letter, but I'm going to get into it. It says, Officer Johnson, this letter concerns your fitness for duty examination. And I'm not going to name the name of the company that I had to deal with, but I really do believe that they were trying to treat me well, and I had no issues with them. So that's why I'll just say the company in place of the actual name of the psychological services company that I used, or that it was the Capitol Police ordered me to use. So anyway, this letter concerns your fitness for duty examination. Let's see. The company completed its medical assessment on January 21st, 2022, and concluded that you are currently unable to perform the essential functions of the position of a United States Capitol Police officer. The company has strongly advised that you seek a 12-week regimen treatment for anxiety and post-traumatic stress to include, and they gave me some things that I can use. Now, the
sorry, stop if I may. Do you mean things that you can use like prescription?
No, not medicine, not medication, okay. Just ways, different types of therapy.
Okay, fine.
Okay, now the anxiety came directly from the Capitol Police. It wasn't because of what occurred on January 6th. The anxiety was because I knew what they were trying to do to me. I knew that they were trying to take my career, and that is what gave me the major anxiety. So now, and obviously the therapist that I spoke to, she picked it up and it was there. So now this is January the 21st, March the 24th is when I get the notification that I'm reading you now. So the company has strongly advised that you seek a 12-week regimen treatment for anxiety and post-stress to include, and they give me some things to do. And now this is what they say. If you elect to complete the treatment plan, you will be required to complete a final fit for duty with the company on or before June 27, 2022. The following final fit for duty will determine whether you can perform the essential functions of a U.S. Capitol Police officer. Should the company determine at that time that you are unable to perform the essential functions of the position of a U.S. Capitol Police officer, the department would make a recommendation to terminate your employment.
Tarik, if I may ask you, all this time you're on leave, or this is unpaid leave?
No, I was on paid leave.
You're on paid leave?
Yeah, I was on paid leave, and that means that on Monday through Friday, I had to stay in the house. I couldn't leave. I couldn't even step off my property from the hours of 8 in the morning to 4 p.m. If I left the house for any reason, I would have had to call the Capitol Police to give them a telephone number where I could be reached at all times. That was, so it was so bad for me. Like, I had stress. I went to check the mailbox one day when I was on suspension because you can't step off your property. They told me I can't step off my property. And like I said, I was going through the anxiety of trying to keep my career. I was checking the mailbox and a letter came out of the mailbox and went into the street. I didn't know if I could go pick it up without calling the Capitol Police. I'm like, shit, I dropped that letter in the middle of the street. Can I pick it up without the permission of the Capitol Police? I was that, I had that much anxiety. So I understood why I didn't pass that first fitness for duty test. I understood that.
What was the test like? What sort of things did they make you do or ask you?
It was like about 4 hours. I had to take like I think it was about a 2.5 written test. I think I passed that part, and some of the questions were, the standard psychological, do you like sleeping with animals? Do you hate your father and love your mother? Do you love your mother and hate your father? If you found, would you marry a dog? I mean, it was like the regular questions that you'd have when you have those physical, those mental, assessments. And then after that, I had to meet with an actual psychiatrist for about an hour and a half, I think it was, and spoke to her for about an hour and a half.
And now let me ask you, because I didn't know this, at least I don't remember that I knew this. When you're on paid leave, I'm sorry, the condition is that not only can you not work anywhere else, but you were basically on house arrest?
I was on house arrest for 17 months.
Is this the same the same conditions that were imposed on all other Capitol Police officers who might have been on paid leave?
Yes, it's the same. They have to do the exact same thing.
How many were on paid leave? How many
I think
others?
they did 6 right after January 6th. I think it was 6 people. There was 6 of us going through that. I was the longest. And obviously, they kept me out a little bit longer because the Capitol Police is going to say because of the psychological issue, which they can say a little bit of that, but they didn't really want to bring me back because they didn't want me around the officers. They didn't want me speaking to the officers. They needed me to shut up. And the best way to shut up was to keep me in the house because
let me just answer this because it seems that some people didn't watch the first interview or don't know how you came to be wearing the MAGA hat. Someone gave you the MAGA hat the day of, they put it on your head, and you thought, I mean, this was what I remember your explanation was, in an attempt to it'll quell, pacify things, so you kept it on and you were directing people. You didn't bring it. It wasn't your property as a matter of protest. You weren't there as a MAGA cop. Someone in the crowd put it on your head. You thought it was a method to soothe the tension between the cops and the people, and you left it on. Someone snapped a picture of it and you went viral. Is that basically what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, so that all the questions.
Yeah, and I told the Capitol Police that during my interrogation because they interrogated me after that for about 2 hours. It was the longest OPR, which is Office of Professional Responsibility interview I've ever had. It might be a record because I was in there forever. So yeah, that's why I wore the hat.
And I'm not trying to be funny, not to bring back bad memories. Just show everybody. You look up Tarik Johnson, and you're going to get this is the infamous picture. After that's how it happened. So just quell everybody's concerns. He's not a plant. He's not a mole. This happened organically the day of, and he got in big. It went viral like Andrew Johnson, with the lectern. So okay, sorry, Tarik, carry on.
Okay, so now getting back into the letter. So didn't pass it. I had the opportunity, is my choice, to take it again no later than June 27th of 2022. Now, following the final fit for duty will determine whether you can perform the essential functions of a U.S. Capitol Police officer. Should the company determine at that time you are unable to perform the essential functions of the position of a U.S. Capitol Police officer, the department would make a recommendation to terminate your employment. So when I read that part, Viva, I want to people to understand what I went through because I did 100% need the help, 100%. But the part that got me was that you want to terminate my employment. So Viva, I'm looking at the letter, right? And I'm screaming at the letter, like it was a person. I'm like, you want to fucking terminate me after everything I fucking did that day? And now you're going to terminate me? So I was crushed. I was angry, yelling at the letter. I was angry. So this is, in March. So now I'm flipping the page. So now they said that they said, please note, you may be eligible for workman's compensation benefits as the company indicated that your condition may have occurred as a result of a performance of duty incident. Really. Accordingly, you may file a claim for workers' compensation with the Department of Labor. Entitlement to workers' compensation benefits is determined by the OWCP and not guaranteed. Then it says that if you would like to complete the final fit for duty, please provide written confirmation as soon as possible, but no later than 5 business days of this letter. So I got 5 days to make a decision for the rest of my life. The confirmation should be delivered to such and such a person. Now, to the extent that you do not wish to take the final fit for duty examination, you may exercise one of the following options. 1, you can apply for disability retirement if eligible. 2, you can submit a letter of resignation. 3, you can apply to open civilian positions at the department. Then it has at the bottom, please note that if you fail to make any election within the 5 business days of the date of this letter, the department will recommend termination of your employment. Please be advised the application for disability retirement will not delay the termination of employment recommendation. So I'm angry. I'm like, you are trying to fire me and because of your malfeasance, you put me in a horrible situation, and now you want to fire me, so I'm angry. And then, Viva, this is how they close out the letter. As a valued member of the department, we want to assist you with this process. Please feel free to contact me or such and such if you have any questions. And my thinking was like, bitch, you know I got questions. You're trying to take my career. So I was angry at this woman. And like I said, I'm not going to say her name, but I realized now that monsters do exist. So I'm sure God will talk to her at a certain point when it's her time to talk to him. But I hated this woman. This woman would send me letters like this with regularity. So, and this is one of the first ones. So, and then even after I left the department, I still had to battle this woman. So, but like I said, I've totally forgiven her and I've moved on. I'm giving it to God, and maybe it'll get addressed later, maybe not. So anyway, so that's what I'm facing, Viva. So now my wife is looking, she's scared. She was like, they're going to terminate you, and I'm like, wow. So I thought about it, but the good thing is this: I started the therapy because my wife said, Tarik, you do need some help. So I started 4 weeks in advance before I got this letter. So I say that to say I had a head start on the 12 weeks. So for 12 weeks, I was going to be finished in May. So since I was going to be finished in May, I wrote the Capitol Police this letter. I won't read the whole letter, but I had to write it to the same person that I addressed who wrote me that letter. So I'm not going to say her name, but to such and such. I elect to take the final fitness for duty examination. Now, if I didn't take the fit for duty, now, because I even got a call from one of this lady's subordinates. And they said, listen, they wanted me to file for the mental disability because if I would have, and they told me they broke it down how much money I would get for the rest of my life, and it sounded great. But if I would have taken the money and then left the department with the mental disability, then anything that I said after January 6th, about January 6th would all be clouded because this guy went out on mental disability. So I told my wife, I said, listen, I want to take this test. She was like, you sure? I was like, sweetheart, I'm ready to take this test. So I sent the Capitol Police. I said, listen, I elect to take the final fitness for duty examination. And then I had a couple of conditions. So I asked them this. It would give me, I put, additionally, I'm requesting that I be allowed to take at least one fit for duty test before June 27, 2022. And the reason why I asked, because that was the 12 days from when they wrote me the letter. But I had already had 4 weeks already that counted. So I would have been finished in May. So I was like, let me take it in May. And if I fail it, let me take it again before July 27th. As long as I'm better by June 27th, I should be good to go. That's what I thought. So this is what I wrote. I said, additionally, I'm requesting that I be allowed to take at least one fit for duty before June 27, 2022. This would benefit me and the department in the following ways. One, it would give my counseling team time to work on issues the company believes we didn't cover properly or enough during our sessions. Two, it would give my counseling team time to adjust or change counseling methods if we are experiencing difficulties in addressing what the company believes we should focus on. We could even bring in additional assistance and resources to the team to achieve the desired results within the remaining weeks. Because I had 4 weeks left, even and still would have completed my 12 weeks. And then finally, I put passing an earlier examination would have me returning to work in a full duty status earlier than the June date. I have read in multiple news articles that the department is short on manpower. My return would help that a little bit. So, and then I understand that there is a cost for the fitness for duty test. I am willing to bear the expense of any fit for duty in the event more than one is needed to clear my return. So I said, I'll even pay for it. I was made aware. Now, this is the part I really want you to hear this part. Knowing that everything I went through on January 6th, listen to this part. I was made aware that the department provided a plethora of resources to officers to deal with the trauma suffered as a result of what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. I was also made aware that those same services were brought back again, after Billy Evans, he was the officer that was killed. I think it was April the 2nd of 2021, who I knew and worked with because I knew that guy. I do not recall being offered any of those services, any of those resources. So when I was out at home, they didn't offer me any help. They were helping officers, but everything that I saw and everything I deal with, they didn't offer me any help. It appears that I may have been forgotten about and or slipped through the cracks. I bring this up not to place blame on the department, but to explain that my healing process has been delayed. Finally, I have reviewed the Capitol Police Directive for Fitness for Duty, and I do not believe that anything outlined in this letter conflicts with the directive in any way. I ask that if the department has issue with any part of my request, that we schedule a date and time to mediate those issues. If there are no objections to this request, I would like to discuss scheduling the first Fit for Duty test this month. Please advise on what my duty status is going forward. Thank you for your time and attention in this matter. So now, pretty decent letter, wouldn't it? Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, well, bottom line, Tarik, they don't want you back, and they want you to. I would imagine they want you to accept to leave on some sort of mental issue, so they can then demonize you and discredit everything that you've explained or outed as relates to January 6th, specifically as relates to the failures of the hierarchy at play on that day.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Okay, so now I got a response back in 4 days. Now this was the response I got back to my request. It put, thank you for, as discussed, the department will not agree to a secondary Fit for Duty test, follow-up, or any mediation based on that decision. That's all he said.
Okay.
So, but it made no sense because my argument was that if I'm going to have my 12 weeks, but you telling me I don't have to get better until the end of June, but if I believe I'm better in May, I completed exactly what you told me, the 12 weeks. And now I'm gonna tell you what they put me through. Now I had to go. Now I passed it. I took it in June. I took it in May. I took it early because I knew I was ready. And if I would have failed it, I was terminated. Or I could have just taken the disability money for the rest of my life and didn't have to worry about it. I said, no, I'm good. I said, I'm gonna take it because I knew I was better. Because the 12 weeks that I had, the woman was absolutely outstanding, got me back. Because I couldn't say, when I first started Viva, I couldn't say Brian Sicknick's name without crying. Couldn't say it. And then I was totally better by May. So I told my wife, she was scared to death. I said, sweetheart, I said, your husband, I got this. I'm going to pass it. Don't worry about it. And even if I didn't pass it, I didn't care because I was not going to let them demonize me and make me out to be like I needed to be put out on Mr. Disability. So now I'm gonna tell you what I had to pass. I had to get 3 different mental health professionals. All 3 of them had to clear me. If one would have said I didn't make it, I was fired. And then one of them had to do a medication assessment to determine that I didn't need psych meds. So I had to pass all of those things. I got to pick 2. The Capitol Police picked the 1. But all 3 had to agree, and I had to pass everything. The first time I got 1 shot, and that was it. And I went and took it, and I crushed it. And then they cleared me to come back. And as soon as they cleared me to come back, I quit. Because I knew, and people were angry at me saying that, why didn't you come out until now? Why would you wait so long? Because if I would have quit, then the Capitol Police would have said that I wouldn't have been able to leave in good standing. And that's big because then they would have said I was a disgruntled employee who went out because he had to take a mental assessment examination and he refused to take it. So I knew I had to do that. And then when I came back, they told me I had to serve a 3-week suspension unpaid. And so then I had to wait again because if you don't serve your suspension, then what they're going to do is say you didn't leave in good standing. So I got my good standing letter. I got my good standing card. And my letter says that I left the department under my own power without any mental reservations, like any mental issues. So I won. Now, I quit. So that was the hard part. So financially, it would have been better for me to take the money, and say I was a little and just say I was crazy, took the money, and then I would have been done with it and then still tried to speak out. But I had to wait until I finished all that, the discipline. Then I wrote the letter and told them I quit. I was never coming back to work for those people.
So bottom line in all of this, this is like like the greatest long play ever. You took close to 2 years or more
Yes.
to jump through the hoops, to get back in good standing, wait the unpaid leave so that you could then quit in
Yes.
good standing and now speak your truth.
Exactly.
What is the word? With unreserved lack of self-censorship.
Exactly. Now it crushed me financially because when I was with the Capitol Police, I was making a lot of money. I was a lieutenant at the Capitol Police. So what I had to do, I was looking for other jobs frantically. I put in for like 20 different jobs, right? So I don't know if you know how the federal government works, but typically any agency that you try to go to, they'll typically check your past employment. And I'm pretty sure that the Capitol Police trashed me to anybody that I applied to, because they wanted me to stay right there. They wanted to bring me back, and they wanted me to either stay there, or they wanted to try to fire me with cause so they can say he's disgruntled. But I got to resign, and I transferred to another federal agency, and I took a huge pay cut. I took $100,000 pay cut, but I got to go to another agency, so they can't say it was about he was disgruntled. I left under my own power, and I transferred. I didn't even have a break in service, so I still get my full retirement, but I have to wait a penalty basically of 20 months. But I still get my retirement. But I didn't care about the money. I grew up poor. I'm talking about super poor. So being poor again didn't really scare me. It bothered me that my wife had to suffer with me because she didn't grow up poor. So so she had to struggle with me too, but she did. But I told her we'll be okay. And I got a few promotions since I've been at my new job. And things are great. And I absolutely love where I work. I love who I work for night and day. But I say all that to say that the letter that I wrote you, that I just read you, that's what they do to people. So now if you're a Capitol Police officer, right, and you need help, and they know that this is what they do. You get a certain amount of time. If you can't get better within that certain amount of time, then the Capitol Police is going to fire you. If you need help, are you going to go to them and tell them you need help? No, you're not going to go get help. That's the problem. So that's what I wanted to talk to the Capitol Police about.
Or if I'm thinking cynically and trying to, bring it back to the number of Capitol Police officers that have apparently committed suicide, and I think we're up to like 6 or 7. If I might be undercounting. Once you get into this system, and if they basically tell you you get better and you pass the test, or we're going to cut you off, people will do drastic things under such circumstances.
Well, there were it was 2 officers that committed suicide from the Capitol Police. One officer, actually 3, if you count. It was 1 officer in training last year. You had Howard Leavengood, and then you had Officer Juan Rivas, who just did it. And then you had the 3 Metropolitan Police officers. Now, I don't know how their process is or what they have to do, but I know how Capitol Police, this is what they do to you. So, so most officers know that if you need help, you can't tell the Capitol Police, because they're going to more than likely destroy your career. And now, if you want to, if you're going through something because of January 6th, they want you to just kill yourself, because they don't want to have to deal with, they don't want any more stories, and they damn sure don't want you leaving no letter that you killed yourself about January 6th because of the corruption that was within the department. They don't want to see any of that. Kill yourself, don't leave a letter.
Well, and I'm bringing this up just not because did they commit suicide or were they killed? But let me bring it back, cover one thing that we talked about in our first interview, Brian Sicknick, the stroke. And I had never even put it together, but I had asked, do you have any knowledge about whether or not there might have been a certain jibby jab intervention? Your understanding is that at that time they weren't being widely dispensed. And so if he did get it, nobody knew about it. So there's no.
Well, I can tell you this. I don't believe he got it, because you're talking to a person. I believe everything on CNN. If CNN said it, it was fucking true. Excuse my French. So whatever they believed, I believed it. I wanted the shot. I would have used any means. I would have begged. I would have cried. I wanted the shot badly. I didn't have the shot at that particular time. So, and I was a higher ranking officer than he was. So no, I don't. And they didn't hit those guys yet. Like the FRU guys, that's the first responder unit. I don't think any of them had it. They were only given the shot to our specialized units. Like you had to be on dignitary protection to get it. You had to be probably on a SWAT team it's called CERT. You had to be on the bomb squad. Only specialized units could get it, because a lot of people wanted it. Some people didn't, but I wanted it. I had to wait. So that's why I don't believe he had the jab.
And that was one question. Now, the other question I had, which you probably know if not them personally, but at least have more direct knowledge. Look, I'm cynical, and it's not for lack of good reason. They wanted to glorify any death related that they could tangentially relate back to January 6th. And so some spouses of officers who took their own lives wanted it to be counted as falling in the line of duty, because then the spouse would be able to get severance or, what's the word I'm looking for? Support. Flip side to that, I don't know, if some of these, if they've lumped into suicide, drug overdoses, or other things that might not be related at all, might not be suicide in the official sense, but so that they can weaponize it, either destigmatize what might otherwise be an embarrassing form of death, or just weaponize it for the purposes of jacking up the numbers of people who were directly or indirectly taking their own lives as a result of January 6th to further demonize the insurrectionists. Do you know of is there any evidence that any of the people who committed suicide or are reported to have might have died of drug overdose that they wrongly or liberally lumped in as having taken their own lives?
Not to my knowledge, but one thing I'm trying to get people, I've been trying to get people to realize this the whole time. Let's say that it was simply because of what occurred, the trauma that occurred on the Capitol grounds. It was bad, but which was way worse, that the upper level command, like I'm not even like the people on the ground, the demonstrators, the officers, we were all in the same boat. We were all set up. All of us should be looking up to those higher commanders to say, why did you allow this? Why did you allow this? Why did you allow that? And then if you listen to the radio transmissions, when you had officers, you had officials begging for help. And then as a commander, you just ignore them. Now, this is one of the things that I think is going to happen at a certain point. I think that they're just trying to wait until the election cycle is done. I think that Manger, I think a lot of these high-ranking Capitol Police officers, they know Pittman messed up. I'm not supposed to say any names. But
we know who it is. They can go back and watch the first interview.
Okay, they know that she messed up. Now, right now, if you go read the final J6, the final report that they accomplished after everything was over, Pittman looks like a national hero that saved democracy. Now, if that changes, now stay with me here. If that ever changes, and then we find out that particular commanders messed up before January 6th, clearly.
They did. They knew.
We know that. But that's not, but Viva, this is the problem. It's not written down anywhere. We just know what they did because the media, the conservative media, we put it out there, but it's not on the official record. It hasn't been testified to. I've never had a chance to testify. I was hoping that the J6 committee called me. They never called me. And I was told by somebody that they knew about me because another person who testified or who was questioned by the committee said that he told them my name. But they already knew it because if you listen to the first night that they aired, the first one, when they aired it on, I think it was a Thursday night, they aired it. The first voice you hear is mine. They played my audio transmissions on the radio. So it's not that they didn't know I exist. They knew I existed. They did not want to hear me because they knew what I was going to say. Because I figured out after I got past the anxiety, after I got past the PTSD, then I found out it wasn't an insurrection and it wasn't Trump's fault. So they knew I was going to go start telling that story. So you have to get me out on mental disability so I don't tell that story.
Well, and this is what I'm wondering. Like, it's really not, you can't be cynical enough. So set aside whether or not they're lumping in potential overdoses. Maybe people started abusing drugs afterwards, if only because of the spotlight that was shone on them. You mentioned now that they make people go submit to psychiatric evaluations. I presume that there was probably also a good number of Capitol Police officers who might have, for the first time in their lives, been prescribed antidepressants. Do you know whether or not they were?
I don't know. I don't know if any that were.
Because I'm thinking out loud. Is that one of the side effects of people who start taking psychiatric SSRIs or antidepressants is, oddly enough, it can increase the risk of suicidal ideations, and it can eliminate not the prohibition, but the reluctance to do it. So it's an odd side effect, which could be the result of just overprescribing a new batch of police officers who need to submit to psychiatric evaluations. The other thing that I'm thinking of, and you can entertain this or not, or tell me if I'm out in left field, is that some of these officers might have been complaining internally. Then they start getting harassed by their superiors. They start getting coerced into submitting to these psych evaluations, which themselves are degrading. And
I know for a fact that's happened.
Okay, see, that's that. And if there's any levels of cynicism here. The other one is Hillary Clinton, and they're being Arkansided. Like so there's, and I don't blame people for thinking that they might have known something, and they get taken out, and then they blame it on suicide. But the most logical here is that everybody knows this was a massive failure of what's the word I'm looking for? Supervision. A massive failure. Leadership. And
the thing is, though, you can't read that in any official report. If you go get an official report, it's not going to say that, because if you say exactly what some of these people did, because like I can tell you, I know the form numbers, like TD 21159 that was withheld. I can tell you who got it. I know.
What is that? Well, sorry, I don't even know what that means. What did you just say?
Okay, TD, I'm sorry, 21 TD 159 is basically, it was a report that Pittman had. Okay, so she had this report. I think she got it on December the 20th.
Okay, that I do know what you're talking about. That's the internal memo that said there will be violence. Here's the plans. You can find it online, etc. Okay.
Yes. So they knew it was going to happen. She didn't give it to Chief Son. He needed that report. Had he had that report, because he was trying to, and if you read his book, if you listen to his Tucker Carlson interview, he was trying to articulate the need he was trying to convince the Senate Sergeant at Arms, Stinger, Michael Stinger, and the House Sergeant at Arms, I got his name slipped out of my head, the House Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving. So he's trying to convince them that we need the National Guard. And they can say to him, you don't have the intelligence to back it up. You don't have the need. You can't articulate the need. You can't show me. And he couldn't, because his assistant had it, but wouldn't give it to him. So if he doesn't have what he needs, he can't get done what he needed to get done, because that report was held back. And now a lot of people get angry with me because they were saying, this woman is not that smart. She is not the end all be all. I know she is not the person who orchestrated everything. She was just the facilitator.
I believe it's.
Yeah, and I never wanted to say that. I'm trying not to say, yes, I know it was somebody else. I even have an idea who. But the issue is this. It couldn't have happened without her consent. She had to facilitate it. She had to hold the intelligence back. And now this is what I want you to understand. And at some point, like, what you have to understand is this: civilly, when it comes to rewards, your government can't hurt you on purpose before and then during January 6th and then after, and not have to pay something. They know that somebody has to pay. And when I say pay, all the demonstrators there, the people that went to jail, even if you did something wrong, your government still can't make it worse for you on purpose.
Tarik, yeah,
they're gonna owe like demonstrators who got arrested. When they get out of jail, they're gonna have to get checks. So now the officers who got hurt are going to get checks. The reason why they don't want to do it now is because if you start saying, look, Pittman, she messed up horribly, so we're going to go ahead and pay the people. That makes Donald Trump look good. And they can't do that because they're already losing the election right now. So now if you do that and start paying, and it wasn't Donald Trump's fault, and it was some
Nancy Pelosi, I'll say it. Nancy Pelosi's. This was an inside job. I let it happen on purpose. I made it happen.
I have no comment on that, sir.
No, I'll be vocal about it. That's my firm belief. And
I think it was somebody else. She didn't wake up one morning and says, you know what? I want to create a January 6th. That didn't happen. Somebody asked her, more than likely, to probably ask her to hold back some of that intel. You don't got to give Chief Son everything. You let him know, do what you got to do, but don't give him anything big, because we don't need too many police officers here. We don't need the National Guard here. We don't need certain resources here. We need some officers, some Capitol Police officers, to get get their asses kicked. Helmets were pulled back. I don't know if you saw that story, but they days before they had. I was one of the commanders that they had taken officers' helmets because, and now I 100% believe this, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but those helmets that I had to pull back were expired helmets. So now they were probably thinking, we already know it's going to be violence here. So now if an officer gets hurt with an expired helmet, I'm liable because the helmet was expired. But if he gets hurt with no helmet, it's obviously going to be worse, but I don't get in trouble because I took the expired helmet.
Oh, when you say they pulled back the helmets, meaning they didn't issue them, not that they pulled them off their heads physically during the
days before, about maybe 10 days before January 6th, and I told Senator Leahy's staff this too. So about 10 days before, you probably didn't hear the story. Joe Hanneman wrote it. You can go back. I'll send it to you. About 10 days before January 6th, they started an aggressive project to take back all expired helmets, CDU like helmets. So I'm like, and people were throwing helmets on my desk and leaving them. That is not how we do property. You go to the property department. I'm not a property guy.
But hold on, let me just stop you at step one here. This is 10 days before January 6th.
Maybe less.
After she who shall not be named, Yogananda Pittman, has this internal memo which we discussed at length.
Yes.
Now they start recalling helmets because they're expired helmets.
Yes. You're the first person that got that. Okay, so now we have a property division, right? So whenever you exchange property, it's a 1-for-1. You take your old one back and they issue a new one. So, but there wasn't enough time to do this department wide. So they probably figured just take the helmets back.
And so these officers are going to, in addition to being short on staff, are going to be short on equipment.
Yes. And then if they get hurt, it's better for them because Donald Trump sent the insurrectionists down to the Capitol to hurt poorly equipped officers. They were poorly equipped because you took their fucking helmets. Excuse my French.
Don't worry about it.
They were understaffed because you didn't have enough people there. You gave people off. My wife, who was an officer, was at home on administrative leave, free leave. She was an officer at the Capitol. She was assigned to the House Division, but she was on a detail to another place. But they told her just stay home, don't worry about it. You need to have everybody on site.
No,
yes, you need to have everybody there. They didn't do that. There was a lot that they didn't do.
No, they did the exact opposite and put bike barricades after having lived through the summer of love. But now I'm going to ask you specific questions, and I'm going to pry and please tell me to shut up or you don't ask. I know that you knew Juan Rivas. Like it was more than just a casual acquaintance.
Well, no, we worked for the same. We worked at the same division, so I would see him routinely. Okay. Now, we weren't friends. We didn't hang out. I didn't know him like that. I didn't know his family dynamic, but I would see him. I remember him very well because the guy was, and I know people, it's so cliche, but this guy was really nice. Like he would always, this guy was always doing his job, always nice, always spoke, so to see him gone was a shocker to me. But yes.
Now, do you know if this is the letter of that Steve Baker, the journalist, posted? What I find incredible is I Google his name and I don't get anything in the news whatsoever. But I'll digest that afterwards. But do you know if he was vocal about any criticism about the department or what his work status was at the time he took his life?
No, I didn't think about him or hear about him until after he didn't exist anymore. When I left the House Division, I hadn't seen him because we work on the same department. You can go 10, 15 years without seeing somebody that work on a different unit. I left the House Division in 2018 and hadn't seen or heard about him until he passed.
And so I know you hear rumors. Is there anything concrete? Like, do you discuss internally with other officers or former officers who are saying we are being subjected to this type of harassment to shut us up because we were sounding the alarm either before, during, or after January 6th and pointing a finger not at Trump, but rather at Pelosi, rather at Pittman, rather at I forget the other person's name. Like, are you familiar with any of these types of discussions among current or former Capitol Police officers? About
a dozen people. I spoke to one today. And
motherfucker, this is like straight up out of a movie where the fact that they wanted, they don't care if January 6th defendants commit suicide. They kind of want them to. That's the ultimate punishment. Torment them, destroy their lives until they take their own lives. But the idea that how do you get rid of cops who are not blaming the insurrectionists necessarily anymore? Because I think that narrative is long past to anybody with half a brain. And then criticizing infrastructure, criticizing the hierarchy, blaming the leadership. And then they say, well, you go, we're going to harass you. We're going to make you take psych exams. We're going to threaten to cut you off if you don't pass. You'll be out up shit creek without a paddle. And then they coerce, nudge people into doing the unthinkable is a very plausible and it seems defensible position. or a theory of this?
100%. And like I said this before, I don't know if you know about this, but about half a dozen, it might have been even more than that. I don't know the exact number. Went to report the malfeasance that occurred before January.
I don't know. Do you know who? Are you allowed to name them, or is this confidential?
I can't name them, no.
Okay.
Because even if you're not with the Capitol Police anymore, they can still hurt you.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's people in the chat saying you know be careful yourself because the corruption knows no limits.
Oh
and
yeah. If like 100%, I think that I would have been gone if had they known that I was going to go scorched earth after I left the department. I might not be here today if had they had a crystal ball and knew. But like my personality, like I was just biting at the bits to leave the department so I could speak. And I immediately started speaking as soon as I could, but I had to get my letter in hand and my good standing card. And ironically so, it was Julie Farnham who brought me. She came to my new job. I can't say where I work at now, but it's another federal agency. Julie Farnham was the one that actually brought me my good standing card and letter.
Julie Farman.
Julie Farnham.
How do you
she was the assistant to Pittman and facilitating what occurred on January 6th. And then after there were about half a dozen intel analysts who went to the IG to report what they knew was false, and they were hearing the stuff in the news and they knew it was lies, so they went to report it. And then Pittman and Julie Farnham started retaliating against them and pretty much fired all of them.
It's amazing now that I had not thought about this angle that bull crap January 6th kangaroo court hearing that they had over the course of 8 months in the investigation, which sought to point all the blame at Trump, the insurrectionists, ought to have been looking at the issues of leadership, the lack of direction, or the potential Lee hop or me hop, the let it happen on purpose or made it happen on purpose. But they obviously won't. And they won't investigate how many feds were involved in this. And in as much as the disproportionate attempt to blame and frame Trump and the Jan 6ers, that is directly correlative to their attempt to cover up and conceal the internal corruption that allowed facilitated this entire thing to happen.
100%. And I'm going to be putting out a whole lot more stuff coming up now, because now that I know that the Capitol Police, they aren't willing to talk. There's no the Capitol Police. This is the way they are. The leadership, they want total destruction. They don't negotiate. They just want to destroy. So, and I figured they weren't going to, allow me to speak. I did communicate it with them, so I know they got the message. 100%, I know they got the message. They didn't want to talk, so that's fine. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to crank it up a notch. So I don't know if you get a chance, if you could put my Twitter profile so they can see my Twitter profile, so people can follow me. But it's about to get real.
Tarik, do you have a few minutes for some? Hold on, let me show your. My dog. My dog is driving me crazy, and I won't
mind
say
at all. And I wouldn't even mind seeing the dog if you got a picture of him.
Well, I'll show you, but the problem is she's got poo. It's Tarik. I got the paralyzed one here, and she's made a big mess in the room, and I'm gonna have to mop up. I'm okay. Hold on. Let me bring up your Twitter feed and make sure that I'm not accidentally bringing up my own.
I want people to see the handle. Follow me because it's going to get real.
Okay, hold up just 1 second. New window, no, incognito, because I'm nervous about opening up and I think we've got some questions in our locals, and I know that we've got a super chat and a rumble rant to get to here. Hold on. I'll let this, Tarik, you'll tell everybody while I show it. I'm just going to run and let the dog out of this room here. Hold on. Screen save, Tarik Johnson. Here, give me a second. Go, get out. Oh, God. Oh, God. It's everywhere. Oh. Tarik, are there any independent or are there any?
You actually see my I think that whatever that login is blocking the.
Here we go. Sorry.
Oh, there, perfect.
L. I don't know why you have such a ridiculous. I know you explained it the last time. L on CEOTK.
It's funny because I've been talking about my irritation about the mass illegal immigration, and then I have a Spanish name. So.
El León. I'm an idiot. Yeah. I was reading it like French, like El.
No, okay. It's Spanish. It means the lion. So I was trying to start a record company like when I was in my 30s, and that was my handle. And I think I made like maybe 2 tweets in like 10 years before I started talking about the January 6th stuff. So I just kept my same handle because I consider myself a lion, because I'm, and I've always had that inside of me. It just never had to come out until after January 6th. But yeah, so that's why I kept it as El León.
El Leon. Okay, now I got it.
Yes, I was going to get a new one, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it the same.
You know, and once upon a time, someone told me, or back in the day, 2016, they said, Viva, what kind of name is Viva Frei for a YouTube channel? Everyone's going to think you're a woman. I was like, well, I'm stubborn, I'm stupid, I have no idea where this is going, so I left it. Tarik, there's a bunch of questions. Let me ask you mine first. Are you aware of any internal investigation, or this is basically like, this is how history is going to be written for the time being until there is an actual independent commission to investigate? There's nothing going on in terms of a real investigation of the failings of January 6th?
Barry Loudermilk. You know who Congressman Barry Loudermilk
yes.
is? Okay, he's and there's a handful of other ones, but for the most part, it's Barry Loudermilk with some support of a couple other ones. But I don't think anybody really wants this, and they had to wait to see what the environment was going to be like. And the problem with January 6th, and the reason why this is not solved yet, is because there was no national outcry or anger because of it. Like George Floyd, if people would have been as angry as George, like they were when George Floyd died, then they would have had to do something.
Yeah,
more. But nobody wants this, Republicans or Democrats.
Tarik, it's so terrible because I don't see things racially. Period. The full stop. And that is an accusation of whatever. But you know, it seems that the progressive liberal Democrat left only care about a black man when it's a white man that killed him. David Dorn, who got shot defending a store during the Summer of Love, crickets. When it's black on black, it's crickets. It's just the most shameless exploitation, and it's victim pornography. Basically, they take a victim and they just turn it into their own type of political pornography. It's going to take like independent commissions, and maybe in a decade's time there'll be an actual meaningful investigation. Yes. But like now I sort of, for those who might have been frustrated earlier on, like you're telling a long story about your own experience, and I anticipated exactly where it's going. This is the type of psychological harassment that they impose force on the undesired. And I have a sneaking suspicion all of these spate of suicides can only be accounted for in any one of four ways. And I'll go with the latter, the fourth option being this is some form of neglect and arguably professional harassment.
That's exactly yes. Now, like I said, I don't know. I can't say in Officer Revis's case because I'm like I said, I don't even know for a fact if he was there on January 6th. I don't know. So I can't say it was because of that.
Well, that's the number one question I'm going to look into right when we're done. Is I hadn't thought to look into that. Let me get a bunch of questions here. Some of them are not super chats. I wanted to bring this up. Roseanne Boylan trampled and died that day too, and now we know that they lied about her having died from a medical emergency because she was taking some sort of prescription medication. I've seen the video now. He died. He lied when he said that he saw. Oh no, I brought this up so we could clarify it because when you said that you saw Sick Nick die, that was the medical emergency, not to question whether or not he actually died of a stroke the next day in hospital, but that there was no fire extinguisher smashing his head like the New York Times reported, and everybody knew it was a lie.
That's correct.
And then this was the interpretation. Fine, so that's why I brought these up. Hold on. Will we address the Capitol Police who were bizarrely suicidal post-6? That's what we've been doing the entire time. Viva, what are his thoughts on the spurious testimony given by Capitol Police Harry Dunn and the other corrupt cop? I think his name was
Fanon,
who was behind Robert De Niro. First of all, I didn't want to make this joke on Twitter today. Harry Dunn is literally Harry's name from Dumb and Dumber. Lloyd Christmas and Harry Dunn. I'm sure that guy must get it all the time. He just lost his congressional run, and I sincerely asked him, like, have you ever thought that you lost your run because you lied about the insurrection? Well, what is your take? Harry Dunn, Fanon, who, as far as I'm concerned, are liars, but maybe I'm just biased. Can you field that one?
I have, and I've never really spoken about them publicly, but I'm gonna do that now. So now, this is me. I'm always going to do this. I'm always going to tell the truth. I don't care if people don't like it. Sometimes I'll stay away from something. If I think people can't handle the truth, then I won't give them the truth from my vantage point. Do I think that Fanon was hurt on January 6th? I do. Do I think Harry Dunn was hurt on January 6th? I do. Do I like the way that they're handling things now? I disagree with it. I wouldn't do it the way that they're doing it. Now, what's worse, I don't know if you know who David Lazarus is. You know who David Lazarus is?
Not by visual, but I know the name. I'm going to go Google it right now.
So even with Harry Dunn, you can kind of say, well, maybe he got. Let's say that you are a Harry Dunn. Let's say you right now, Viva, you're the biggest Harry Dunn fan in the entire world. You can kind of say, well, he could have messed up when he said this in court or he did this. When it comes to David Lazarus, he lied. I mean, he put himself in the location he wasn't even there.
And then the video came out afterwards,
yes.
objectively disproving.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then when he went through his OPR investigation with the Capitol Police, they found him not guilty. So now, how can you not find him guilty? Now, I'm always I'm an optimist. Let the person have his day in court, but his lies were so vicious. There's nothing that I can say that I said, well, maybe people went to jail behind that testimony. And you said that you witnessed the Oath Keepers, you witnessed that. You weren't even in the same building. And nobody's talking about that. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you want to say, well, let me deal with Harry Dunn and Fanon later on, let's deal with this David Lazarus guy. And and I just heard the other day, he's back here, he's back on the job, having a good time, making plenty of money. But his testimony, he put himself in a different building. How do you get around that? I've done many investigations. I've had to do investigations myself. I've been questioning investigations. I don't know how you can make something up that big and survive it. And then there was that right there. When that story came out, I thought that was it. I said the ball's dropped. Everything's about to come crashing down, and not a peep.
Nope. Well, not when you got the likes of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney as the bipartisan elements of that bullshit.
Who are horrible human beings, and I've said that multiple times on Twitter.
Oh, they're
horrible individuals.
Awful. I don't need to know them to. And as much as I know, maybe they're very nice people. They treat their dogs very nicely. Why no loudspeakers and bullhorn crowd control by police on January 6th? Basil Beshkov.
I don't know. And it's a question that one of my Twitter followers always brings it up. I can't remember Ron. I can't remember his name. His first name was Ron, but he always talks about that all the time. And yes, he's not wrong. We should have had that on. It should have been used. Now we had a person. Now obviously nobody on the ground could have activated that. That would have had to come from the command center. And the person in the command center, like I said, I'm trying not to say her name because I don't want to take away from the message because I still haven't even given you the main message yet. But they just in there watching everything unfold on CCTV, offering no help. Now, don't read the January 6th commission report. Listen for yourself and listen to the radio transmissions and see if they were helping because they weren't helping.
I'm going to bring one up. This is not a question. It's a Rumble rant. And Tarik, if you're into beef jerky, you should get this. King of Biltong, good afternoon from Anton's Meat and Eat. Free shipping for your biltong using code VIVA on biltongusa.com, antonusa.com. Biltong is perfect for your carnivore, keto, and high protein diet. And I want some right now. It's like wet beef jerky. It's not an official sponsor, but I read the Rumble rants. I'm going to get some questions in locals, Tarik, for you.
No problem.
Let's see here. I'm going to go to the tipped ones first. Boopsy says, this is the most important topic to me. January 6th was traumatizing for me and I wasn't even there. And the more we've learned, the worse it gets. No, for me as well, because you have to understand, everybody who's watching now understands what they use January 6th for. And they used it to criminalize the right to peacefully protest. Because now, whether or not you think there were pockets of violence and whether or not you think it was instigated, everybody's now like, well, do I go support Trump in front of that? Well, I don't want to get arrested. I don't want them claiming another insurrection. And they've successfully traumatized people out of publicly and peacefully protesting.
I want to get into this, right? Like I said, and I try not to curse, but I have to sometimes. Because,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay. So now let's say that you came to January 6th to support the president. Now, just real quick, I believe it. The people on the ground that day, it wasn't really directed towards them. They were cannon fodder. They wanted Trump. They wanted to embarrass Trump. That's why this occurred. The people are just suffering after, but that's what it was about. So let's say that, okay, if I've been going around saying for almost 2 years that January 6th wasn't an insurrection, isn't it better for the country if I'm right? Doesn't that make it better? Let's say on the off chance that January 6th wasn't a horrible insurrection, wouldn't you want to say, hold up, can you explain why? And from what vantage point? I was there. You know, I actually got help from some of the people that you call insurrectionists to help me rescue some officers. So, but if January 6th if there's a smidgen of a chance that it wasn't an insurrection, don't argue with me. Help me, show me how it's an insurrection. Show me where I'm wrong. But if I'm right, then take that. You want it to be, because if January 6th wasn't an insurrection, it's better for our country. Now this is the thing. Now I'm passionate about this one. Okay, now let's say that you came to January 6th to support your president, and now after you got home, then you looked on TV, it was an insurrection. And if you were there, you were an insurrectionist. So now you're like, oh shit, I'm an insurrectionist. Or you were a terrorist. Or you were a terrorist and you're an insurrectionist. So now, if you get labeled that, now you've lost your family, you lost your friends. And now let's say, and you look at some of the people, and even though some of the people I don't know if you know, but so I argue with some of the J6ers sometimes. We go back and forth. Some of them hate me. But I understand their issue. So if somebody's calling you an insurrectionist and you really weren't trying to do an insurrection, you're going to be fucking pissed. I'm not a fucking insurrectionist. I'm not an insurrectionist. I'm not a terrorist. So you're mad because they're calling you this every day. So what do you want to do? You want to fight for 3 or 4 years like some of these guys are doing, and you're going to go on Twitter, you're going to go on interviews, you're going to do this. That's what they're doing, because probably so they weren't terrorists and insurrectionists. Now,
no, but I know they want to create the response that they did actually get there. They want to create insurrection. So this is an act of provocation, demonize, terrorize, weaponize, imprison, torture into suicide, and then try to provoke an actual meaning.
Because you don't want Trump to be president. Yeah. So that's the sole reason why. And and I can go on another tangent of why Trump is the best person for the country. Now, and I say this, I didn't vote for Trump in 2020 because I got beat up. I voted for him in 2016, and Viva, when I tell you, my family beat me up. I was getting text messages anytime Trump said something that they didn't like. I got a message.
That's why you don't tell anybody who you. Well, I should say don't.
I know, yeah, but I don't lie about it. It's
I know, and it's a joke, because if you don't tell anybody, then I don't tell people who to vote for.
I don't care what anybody says. I'm absolutely voting for Trump because I think he's the best person for the country, 100%. And I'm going to keep my same energy. So if somebody doesn't like it, if you don't want to be my friend, because I decided I want to vote for Trump because I want him to be my president, because I believe I'm not voting for him because I'm a nut. I'm voting for Trump because I believe absolutely he's the best person for the job. Now, and this is one thing that I've argued with people, and nobody can beat me on this one. Okay, now, the left, they're so good, they're pious. The right, we're angry, we're violent. But after January 6th, when I wore the MAGA hat, people started dumping trash in my yard. So, on multiple occasions, if I put a Trump sign out, because I live in a liberal state, I live in Maryland, I live in a very liberal state, a very liberal community. My congressman is Steny Hoyer. If I put a Trump sign out in my yard right now, my house would be firebombed. No question. But you tell me that the right, they're the ones that are so evil. I saw a guy had a Trump sign. I was driving on the main highway near my house, and the guy had a Trump. It said 2020, and somebody went and spray painted the guy's sign. He went and spray painted the back. But the thing is this: you're talking about the right are so evil, they're so violent, So you keep saying it, but what has the right done since January 6th? They haven't done anything. So you keep saying they're so evil, they're so violent, they're so evil. Nothing's happened. They're afraid to even demonstrate now because they think they're going to get locked up. So they haven't done anything.
No, but what's amazing is I had Jason Palmer on, and I'm not mentioning him to make fun of him. I'm happy that he came on. He actually is running for president. He won the American Samoa delegates against Joe Biden. And we were talking about January 6th. And people have false memory, like the Mandela effect, where he's like, I said, what kind of insurrection is it where they show up and the flagpoles are the weapons? And he's like, oh, no, there were weapons there. I was like, excluding pepper spray, baseball bats, because you don't insurrect with pepper spray and a baseball bat. There were no weapons there. He's like, no, there were. And I Googled it in real time. And we read it. It's like, no, there was a pocket knife. That was one of the weapons. And that was in a medical kit. I was like, people call this an insurrection. They left their weapons at home.
Now, I have some inside information for you. There were guns there. They found guns later on. But that even goes more to the point. If let's say for argument's sake, let's use with the left. Everybody there had a gun. Okay, let's go with that. Everybody had a gun, and they still lost. They couldn't complete the insurrection. You had 1 million people there. You had about 200 officers there. No, none of the officers.
Well, I don't want to push back or challenge. I want to know what you're talking about. I have not seen any reports that weapons, that firearms were found
they didn't
on
put
the
it out
Capitol.
publicly. I know somebody called and told me. They didn't put it out publicly. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the Capitol Police, they're held to the they don't have to adhere to the FOIAs, the Freedom of Information Act. That's huge.
But hold on, Tarik. If guns were found on the Capitol, why the hell would they not have released it? Let me rephrase. If guns belonging to insurrectionists, why on earth would that not be released?
Because exactly what I said. If they were all armed to the hilt, why wasn't because January 6th was an insurrection. If all these people were armed to the tooth, how come they weren't successful?
No, but hold on.
Officers got shot.
But if there was even any, what I found laughable is the Oath Keepers left their weapons cache at their hotel. If there was an actual firearm anywhere to be found, if it wasn't belonging to the Capitol Police, no, the reason why I questioned it and doubted it is because if it had happened, they would have taken a picture of that like they did with the weapons cache up in Coots in Canada. You may not know about that story. They would have paraded that picture around forever. I question that. Because if it had happened, I would have heard about it.
Probably. Now, let's say it didn't happen, or if it did, we don't know. Just keep it. It's just It's not going. If it's not going to help their cause, and because I'm thinking that if everybody had weapons, how weren't they successful?
Well, no, my whole point is nobody came with a weapon. It wasn't. It might have been a violent protest.
Could not have been an insurrection because we couldn't have stopped it. If they were there for the purpose of taking over the U.S. Capitol violently, if that's why they were there, we couldn't have stopped them. Now, do I think that were they trying to disrupt the counting of electoral votes? Probably so. But when it comes to, that's a whole different situation than a violent insurrection murdering members of Congress.
I don't think they were trying to prevent the counting. I think they wanted to ensure that it was counted properly. But that's any other protesting the confirmation hearing of a judge, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh. Let me read one thing here because it's actually okay. It's from Ryan PD911. Says, "Hey Viva, please have Minnesota RNC committee person on Viva Barnes." I've screen grabbed it and I'm going to look. We got working there so many years. Was it normal to put up scaffolding so far ahead of an inauguration, even before certification? The scaffolding created an unsafe condition, and it seemed deliberate, so they'd climb for optics and maybe injuries, or maybe for the scaffolding guy to direct them where to go. Tarik, hold on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to open chat in Rumble in vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Get your questions in right now. So you have you have a new job. You're out. You succeeded in leaving without them being able to say they fired you or you were unfit. You get there, you go back, you do your unpaid leave, and you flip them the middle finger and you find another job. So what are you going to do now? I mean, you're going to continue pushing and trying to expose this? I mean, what would need to be exposed in order for people to appreciate where the failures came from and where the corruption originated from? Okay,
so now I do honestly believe that Congressman Loudermilk is working to get the truth out. And and when I say that, I talked to some friends, and so I feel confident. I can't get into really more than that, and that's why I kind of could say I could step down a little bit. Number one, the suicides have to stop, and on both sides. And one of the things I wanted to talk to the Capitol Police about was, and I know they wouldn't be interested. Maybe you can listen to it or think about it. It should be some kind of a chat line or something, specifically with people who are J6 victims, because anybody that was there is a victim, officers and J6ers. That if you need help, it should be people who know that if you call this particular hotline, you were one of the victims of J6. You were one of the people that were set up on J6. So it should be something, and then those people should get help. It should be something where the officers, maybe Metropolitan or Capitol Police, can go to where their departments can't find out. And their careers aren't destroyed because they're looking for help.
Tarik, get done. As far as I'm concerned, even if we accept it on its face, it's such a statistical anomaly. There should be an independent commission looking into what the hell is going on that so many Capitol Police officers have taken their own lives. It should be an independent commission.
Metropolitan too.
Metropolitan. That's right. I don't mean to lump it or ignore, but yeah. And by the way, Joe Maskew in our locals community says, question for Tarik. This is an interesting way of reconciling both of our opposing views here. What's the likelihood that the guns that were found, if any, were by other federal agents? I mean, I could envision guns were there, and then the only people who had the guns were feds. so they don't disclose that because then we'd have to know who the people were. So we could, but there's a possibility that both of our skepticism and stories
I'm not even saying that's wrong. It's possible an officer could have lost a gun. Is that possible? 100%. I just heard that there were guns found. That's all I heard.
Hyphen says Viva. Hyphen is one of our members here. He says, does he have any direct info on Pelosi's lack of leadership creating this mess? I think you answered that one the first time around, but the bottom line, it's transparent on its face. I think we got to the understaffing and the lack of equipment. Whether who you put that responsibility on is a different question. Did he see any groups of Antifa turds disguised as MAGA from Bill Brown? I think I asked you this the first time. No? And this is why I think people got mad at you, because like your lived experience didn't match up and they immediately go for undermining you. I'm not reading the bad jokes there. What do we got here? Need to get January 6ers out of political prison, says Sophia Agape. Well, we're going to see what the immunity, the obstruction ruling coming down from SCOTUS has. Tarik, have we not covered anything that you want to cover?
I think I got to make the point about the suicides, and at some point somebody needs to step up. I wish I could do it. That there needs to be some kind of a place where J6ers and Capitol Police officers can go, and Metropolitan Police officers, whoever needs help, who are hurt because of January 6th. Because at some point, if after it's proven, because it's going to be proven that this particular woman messed up before, during, and after January 6th, because your government can't hurt you. They're going to have to take care of everybody civilly. You're probably talking about a couple $2 billion that they're going to have to pay, but that's nothing. How much have we given to the Ukraine? So, and the reason why they won't do it now is for two reasons. Number one is because they don't want to do anything to make anybody whole before the election, because they don't want to make Donald Trump look good. Mm-hmm. And number two, the reason why they don't want to do anything for the Capitol Police. Now, they don't want to do anything for the Capitol Police officers, because if you give a Capitol Police officer, let's say, well, Pittman messed up before, during, I didn't say that name, before, during, and after January 6th, right? So yes, you are owed $500,000, officer such and such. If that officer has 25 years on, he's eligible to retire, you give him $500,000, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to retire. You have officers who've been, let's say he's been there 2 years. You give him, he was there, he got hurt, he gets $1 million. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to leave and go to another agency. So if you start paying all these officers what they're due, then you're going to have because they're having a problem holding officers now. But if you pay them what they're supposed to get paid right now, they're going to, a bunch of them are going to leave. If you have over 20 years, you can transfer it to another federal agency, enjoy your $500,000, and do part-time work at another federal agency. Mm-hmm. You don't have to work 16 hours a day. You don't have to get held over for Christmas. They're afraid of a mass exodus if they take care of the officers now. But right now, because that's why they can't write anything down now, and then they don't want to help people who got jailed. Because let's say that you were charged with a misdemeanor, right? But your government screwed you before doing it after January 6th. Now, when you come out of jail, we got to write you a check for $200,000. They don't want to do that. That money is nothing. We give the Ukraine more than that every day. So they can take care of this. They're afraid. They don't want to make Donald Trump look good. And they don't want a mass exodus with Capitol Police officers getting paid and leaving.
They cannot have it be revealed that this was the setup that it was, because they for the political purposes they weaponized it for.
100%.
I want to read this one. This is because it's in caps and it caught my eye. Medic 1541 says, why does Tarik refuse to help the January 6th defendants and testify at their trials? He refuses to testify. I don't think that's true. You were never called to testify at January 6th, the committee, despite offering it. Have you been called as a witness for any of the agents?
Now I've been getting beat up on Twitter with regularity about that exact same situation. So let me answer this now so they'll know. Okay, I did get called. I got subpoenaed for one of the trials, the Oath Keepers trial, Stuart Rhodes. I'm sure you know who Stuart Rhodes is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So I called my attorney. My attorney did the discussion. This is the first time I'm ever saying this. I got the subpoena too, if you need to see it. So they called me in. So now, to the FBI's credit, they asked me, they want the truth about what happened. They said so, and they because me on that day, I was escorted up the steps by 2 Oath Keepers. Now I didn't know that they were Oath Keepers before January 6th. So they helped me up and they helped me back. So now when I was in the room, Before the interview began, the Capitol Police wanted a representative in the room, and I told the FBI and I told the Justice Department was there too, and I said that if anybody from the Capitol Police is in this interview room, I'm walking out. So they said we don't know if we can do it. I said fine. So then they all walked out, convened for a while, came back in, and said we're going to do the interview. I said nobody from Capitol Police because I didn't trust any of those bastards. So we began the interview. They showed me tape, they showed me videos. So and I told them the 100% truth. Because I knew those guys were oath keepers. I said 100% they were there to help me. And they said, so do you think you would have gotten hurt if they weren't there? I said, it's possible that I could have gotten hurt. I don't think I could have made it through that crowd without them. They helped me. I don't know what they did before my interaction with them or after, but they tried to help me. I told them the truth. So they said they're going to call me back to testify. And they never called me back to testify because they didn't want my testimony.
Well, so, and now the defendants, the oath keepers or Rhodes their attorney didn't call you either?
Nobody, none of them subpoenaed me. But also, too, I heard that some people tried to subpoena me and it was blocked. So it doesn't matter. So people keep saying, "Oh, you won't testify," and I didn't, because I'm not trying to I don't believe that the government is corrupt. I believe that the government is focused on a certain individual, and I believe that they're going to use legal means, and they're not going to look. And I don't know if they can look at any other thing, if you follow what I'm saying. But do I think that and for me, I've been a lifelong federal employee. So for me, it's going to take a hell of a lot to convince me that the federal government is corrupt. Now, I do believe that there were certain individuals that corrupt. A lot of those people were employed in my department. And I believe that those are the people that hurt a lot of the people on the ground that day. So, but like I said, I was in that room with them, the FBI, none of them tried to push an agenda on me. I told them what I believed, and they said, thank you for your service, and they never called me back.
Some people might call that the very corruption that you think doesn't exist.
And to answer that question about that other person too. Okay, so this is the other reason. Now, I'm still hurting for what occurred on January 6th, no question. It'll be tough to relive that every single day. Now, what I told them is that I would like to testify. Because now, if my testimony was in direct relation to somebody that I had an interaction with that got arrested, 100% I'm going to testify. But I got people who were just there, and everybody will want me to testify in their trials. I can't be at every single. Do you know?
Well, but it's not just that people don't understand. Also, you have to testify on something that you have direct knowledge of as relates to the trial, not just broadly what happened. Okay, we're not doing trial after trial about everything of January 6th. It's even from the oath keepers, they probably could appreciate having you come on and say, yeah, I would have gotten hurt if I hadn't been there. Not going to be very, might be useful maybe for sentencing, but not as relates to the whatever they're been charged with. So I can understand that people think you're going to go there and exonerate them by telling your story.
Every single trial. How can I do that? And then I still got to go to work. So how do I go to work? And if I'm always in trial and for a case that I don't have direct knowledge about, how can I help? So the judge is going to bounce me out. So you want to give me a subpoena? You want me to come in to your trial?
But bottom line, it's up to the defendants to subpoena somebody they want to. You can volunteer and they can get you if they think you have any relevant knowledge. If you don't, they're not going to call you for the sake of it. Let me bring this up. I think I remember one guy being shown in a nearby hotel lobby with a holstered weapon. He was later arrested, if I remember. There was the one guy who brought the gun, but he was on the outside and he got sentenced to a long time. The one whose son ratted him out. I forget his name.
I know you're talking about.
He wasn't in. I think he was in the vicinity. Charles Argo says, why aren't water cannons allowed in the U.S. Here in South Africa? We use them and they're very effective. Let me end with this one right here, Tarik. It's a super chat from Pinochet's Helicopters Tour. No, I have to go look up that name. Here, Pinochet's Helicopter Tour. It was in Trump's best interest to count. The count happened so it could be challenged. That's exactly the argument. Is that they weren't there to frustrate the count. They wanted it to be done properly or legitimately. Can you ask the guest how many former and current federal employees would need to be isolated and interrogated to get answers?
I can answer this one. I've been screaming at the rafters, trying to get people to answer this. There are a few things that have to happen. Right now, the Capitol Police is led by J. Thomas Manger and a guy named Sean Gallagher. Now, everybody's afraid of those guys. As long as those guys are at the head of the Capitol Police, nobody's going to talk. Period. The other thing is this: you have FOIA. Now, there's something called exculpatory evidence. Now, the Capitol Police aren't giving you anything unless you fight for it. Period. Now, there are things that could be related to somebody's case, but the thing is, the Capitol Police don't have to give you anything because they don't have to adhere to FOIA. That has to be lifted. And the other thing is, now, when Pittman was made the chief of police, the Capitol Police, acting in an acting capacity, it was on January the 8th of 2021. The Sergeant at Arms, his name was Paul Irving for the House, had resigned his position on the 7th of January, but he signed off on her to be the chief on the 8th. How could he sign for her to be the chief of police on the 8th after he had already resigned his position on the 7th? So for that reason alone, her appointment to the acting chief position should be null and void. Any NDA that she forced any officer to sign should be null and void. And every client, every J6 client, every police officer, Metropolitan and Capitol Police, for civil suits that could come up, should be able to see those NDAs. You need to see the NDA. So those three things have to happen for you to really get some answers about what occurred on January 6th.
Well, Tarik, if you know anybody who wants to disclose their NDA,
Capitol Police would destroy them if they do.
Tarik, it's been amazing. We were supposed to go a half an hour. This has been a lot more than a half an hour.
A little bit longer than a half an hour, yes.
Tarik, thank you for coming on. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for giving me the time and answering all of my questions, because I've got a lot, and I think I know what I believe now, and I think it's pretty damn well a defensible position. We will continue to be friends offline,
100%.
and you'll come. Any news, you'll come back on and you'll tell us what's going on.
100%. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. I'm going to end it. We're going to say our proper goodbyes, everyone out there. Go. I will be live at some point tomorrow. I forgot to end this stream and go straight to Rumble. Well, I got distracted. I will be live tomorrow at some point, people, and I'm going to do a short vlog tonight after I mop up the disgusting floor in which I live. Tarik, stick around. We'll talk. Everyone out there, peace out. Have a good night.